President Trump promised to end the wars. He promised to release the Epstein files. Did anyone really think the sexual predator president who used to party with Jeffrey Epstein was going to release the Epstein files?
Yeah, Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia getting us started with the most keen observation that anybody's making around this whole Epstein scandal. And it is a scandal. Hello and a happy Monday. Thank you very much for pressing play on Stand Up, the daily podcast with the best news, recap, clip show, and guests. You can find it every day wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube, youtube.com/standup with Pete, where I was live yesterday with the great Cauvin, who is my guest. Very, very, as always, excellent conversation with JL, who's got some great personal news that's going to really make a difference in the world. I'm very excited for you to hear our conversation. If you want to jump to it, it starts at about 45 minutes into today's show. But I've got your headlines and your clip show. Also want to tell you it is Monday in case you didn't know, in case you woke up and you're like, what day is it? You usually know when it's Monday, right? Because Sunday night has all those feelings. Well, it is Monday. It is July 14th, and I will be hosting a Hangout tonight at 8 p.m. East, as I do almost every Monday and Thursday, for stand-up subscribers who pay as little as $5 or as much as you want. You can always pay more. Thank you very much. Go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic. There are no ads on this show except for the show and the community that goes along with it. Things like Farm Jam, September 5th through 7th in Central New York. About 50 of us right now signed up to hang out for a few days on Kevin Richburg's farm in beautiful upstate New York. We'll go to a vineyard. We'll go on a boat. We'll camp out. We'll barbecue. We'll eat together. We'll play. It'll be fun. So I hope to see you there. If you want to go, there are details in today's show notes, as there are every day. It's free. Suggested donation to cover food and drink, basically BYO. But that'll be great. Looking forward to early September, and I'm looking forward to tonight, and I'm looking, forward to today. How about that? Staying in the moment. Happy to have you here. Lots going on, as there is every day, and let's get to it. Here are your headlines today. If anybody does a better news recap than me, let me know. I'll go listen to that one too, because I pay attention to the news, so you don't have to. You could just stop in here once a day. I'll give you everything you need to know and more, and also share all these clips with you too. So thank you very much for joining me. Let's get after it and start it up. I think we got to start with Friday, when more than 1,300 employees were forced out of the State Department, leaving their offices with small boxes of plants, old coffee mugs, taking with them decades of specialized skills and on-the-job training as part of the United States Diplomatic Corps. A real disaster. The decapitation of the State Department, and I think a story that's going undercovered for several different reasons. But the massive overhaul of the State Department has been in the works for months. The Trump administration informing Congress in late May that thousands of State Department employees would lose their jobs as part of the largest reorganization of the department in decades. I think I'm probably going to talk with Bill Boyle about this at some point today, live. You can watch it live and probably air tomorrow on the podcast, but he's all over it, knows a lot of people that have been working in the State Department, and it's a very, very big and important issue to discuss. So definitely wanted to lead with that because it happened Friday. This morning on Sunday, our Mad King announced he raised the stakes on the trade war. 30% tariffs on Mexico and the EU beginning August 1st. Trump announced 30% tariffs on social media, of course. The letters upended months of negotiations with both the EU and Mexico. European leaders were outraged. Some urged retaliatory tariffs, while others said they hoped a deal could still be reached. Mexico hasn't retaliated against U.S. tariffs, but officials have repeatedly said they reserve the right to. The threatened tariffs apparently do not apply to imported cars, which is interesting. Stock futures dipped as Trump stepped up the tariff threats, according to CNBC. And, anybody that covers stock futures on Sunday. Our Mad King is also facing potentially his biggest scandal since he became president again, which is our long national nightmare. He's facing a revolt from his MAGA base over the Epstein files. I'm sure you are probably following or knowing something about this story. You can't not. The Epstein files and calls for Attorney General Pam Bondi to be fired dominated a conservative conference, Tampa, this weekend, the Turning Point USA conference. So a lot came out of that. But all the biggest influencers from Megyn Kelly to Tucker Carlson and so many more are not letting this go. So we'll have to see what happens. Is this still going to be a story next week? What do you think? What's your bet? Will something else replace it? Like the conditions at the detention camp called Alligator Alcatraz? I won't call it that. It's a concentration camp. It's an inhumane jail. It's a death camp, potentially. 2 days after filing a lawsuit against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for being unlawfully denied entry to inspect conditions at the facility, members of Congress, Democrats, and state representatives were given a limited tour Friday to inspect conditions after calling the lack of access a deliberate obstruction meant to hide what's really happening behind those gates, according to a joint statement from lawmakers. And I've got some audio from that coming up for you. Moving on. The more the climate crisis intensifies, the more we can expect weeks like last week, where first the river rose in Texas, then the rains fell hard over North Carolina, New Mexico, and Illinois. In less than a week, there were at least four 1 in 1,000 year rainfall events across the United States. Intense deluges that are thought to have roughly a 0.1% chance of happening in any given year. Well, I think that's a pretty big story and should get more attention than it does. 2 weeks ago, by the way, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State and hollow barrel of a human, said that USAID has little to show since the end of the Cold War. Well, guess what? A couple days earlier, a Lancet study estimated that USAID global health programs have saved 90 million lives, and not since 1991, just since 2001. 25 million lives saved from HIV, AIDS, 11 million from diarrheal disease, 9 million from lower respiratory infections, 9 million from neglected tropical diseases such as dengue and river blindness, 8 million from malaria, 5 million from tuberculosis, 2 million from nutritional deficiencies. So he is a monster. I mean, these guys are you could almost call them mass murderers for what they have done to destroy all of that aid, and people have already died as a result of it. Absolutely horrific. Speaking of horrific, another church shooting, this time in Kentucky. 2 women were killed in a shooting at the Richmond Road Baptist Church in Lexington, Kentucky, after a man shot a state trooper near the city's airport. 2 men are also injured in the church shooting. I mean, another church shooting in another American church. Why are so many violent shootings at Christian churches? Maybe I misspoke there, but violent churches, maybe there's something going on. I don't know, but why so many violent shootings at Christian churches? What else do I have for you? The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, DUI hire, used the Metallica song Enter Sandman without permission in a ridiculous video I shared last week. I saw it was terrible. It was really embarrassing. He had drones flying around delivering notes to him. And he announced that DoD was going to emphasize massive increases in U.S. productions of drones. So Metallica files a cease and desist, and DoD was forced to delete and reissue the video without any music. The U.S. Department of Defense committed copyright fraud. Amazing. Now, we've sunk so far, so fast. A federal judge ordered 2 attorneys representing the MyPillow CEO, Mike Lindell, in a Colorado defamation case to both pay $3,000 each after they used artificial intelligence to prepare a court filing with a host of mistakes and citations of cases that did not exist. Thought that was an interesting one to share. And finally, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a box office hit. Superman opening to $123 million. And I thought that was great because apparently the MAGA's mad about this version of Superman, and I'm here for it. All right, well, those are just some of the headlines from the weekend, and now it's time to get to the clips I've brought for you. Time for the clip show every day. I've got sound bites, clips. Some are 30 seconds, some are much longer, sometimes 4 or 5 minutes, and I have got a pretty good selection for you today, so let's get it on. I want to start with Rosie O'Donnell. A clip of Rosie O'Donnell. I like Rosie. Rosie and I were always really friendly back in the day, and she was very good to me and kind to me and generous to me with her compliments and her thoughtfulness, and I still like her. You know, I don't always agree with her in the past. Sometimes she gets a little conspiratorial and all that, but I love Rosie O'Donnell for a lot of reasons, and Trump wants to deport her. He wants to remove her citizenship. Of course, she's already moved to Ireland when he got reelected because she's so worried about him. And it looks like those of us who were making fun of her, calling her a coward, are wrong. I was never doing that, but people did. And I could see that, criticizing people for leaving, but not certain people like Rosie. Trump over the weekend tried to distract everybody who wants the MAGA Nation wants the Epstein files obviously released, pretty focused on that. But Trump said over the weekend, because of the fact that Rosie O'Donnell is not in the best interests of our great country, I'm giving serious consideration to taking away her citizenship. She's a threat to humanity and should remain in the wonderful country of Ireland. If they want her, God bless America. Well, Rosie has responded in a couple different places with a post, and this here's a clip from the post that she made on, I think, Instagram.
He's put this country in so much danger by his horrible decisions and this ridiculously immoral bill that he just signed into law. As Republicans cheered, people will die as a result, and they've started already. Shame on him. Shame on every GOP sycophant who's listening and following the disastrous decisions of this mentally incapacitated POTUS.
She also wrote this and posted it on social media. She wrote, "Hey, Donald, you're rattled again. 18 years later, I still live rent-free in your collapsing head of yours. You call me a threat to humanity, but I'm everything you fear. A loud woman, a queer woman, a mother who tells the truth, an American who got out of the country when the country caught fire. You build walls, I build a life for my autistic kid in a country where decency still exists. You crave reality. I teach my children to question power. You sell fear on golf courses. I make art about surviving trauma. You lie, you steal, you degrade. I nurture. I create. I persist. You're everything that is wrong with America, and I'm everything you hate about what's still right with it. You want to revoke my citizenship? Go ahead and try, King Joffrey with the spray tan. I'm not yours to silence. I never was. Rosie." King Joffrey is a character in Game of Thrones, apparently. Never watched it. Sorry. But loved it. Love Rosie. There's that. And now on to the next clip I've got for you here. I mentioned a delegation of Democratic congressmen, both U.S. representatives and state representatives, all from the Florida delegation, so Florida reps, toured the detention camp they're calling Alligator Alley. And this is just a little bit from that press conference right after. Forgive me for not knowing these Congress folks' names, these Florida reps.
Really quick, I just want to debunk one thing. My colleagues, and I think for our federal partners, but this idea that the worst of the worst is inside the facility is not true. Yep. They are separating them based off of wristbands, based off of orange, yellow, and red. And individuals with small infractions are inside this facility. Civil traffic infractions, suspended license are in there. So the idea that the worst of the worst is in there is not true.
So adding to that point, I'll just add, the only people we saw there were Hispanic-looking males. That's all we saw there. All Hispanic-looking adult males, including those with no criminal infractions at the lowest level. There was one person who was on medical isolation. We couldn't get details about that. I was trying to figure out if it's a public health emergency or a public health concern that puts them in isolation, and we don't know how many people have been put in medical isolation to this point.
All right, there's a lot more than just that. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Maxwell Frost, and more. And I hope they stay on that. I'm sure that they will, but this sounds like a real disgusting place to be. All right, Gavin Newsom sat down and had a beer with one of the hosts from the Tennessee Holler, which is a great social media outlet out of Tennessee. And I thought this was fun, so I wanted to share this with a very effective communicator, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, of course.
About that. These guys have no shame and no limits unless we, the people, step up. And next year is a date with destiny, man.
Governor, thank you for doing this. Do you think there's an Epstein list?
I mean, now I'm going to start sounding conspiratorial. After Elon tweeted that out and all of a sudden now it disappears. Really, Trump? Show us. What do you got? Where's the transparency? What carnies? What flim-flammers? What music men? What bullshit artists? These guys are.
Not even good ones either.
Not even good ones.
All right. I thought that was pretty good. I thought this was really good. I don't know where I saw this. I think Joy Reid posted it. But this is a white construction worker who really just sounds like kind of a, country redneck Southern bumpkin type guy. And he admits a lot of the people that, I don't know, watch him or know him, I guess, and follow him, whatever social media outlet he posted, are going to not like his opinion. But obviously he is speaking the truth here about construction sites in America, many of them at least.
I know I'm going to get a lot of hate over this, and I really don't give a fuck. But the point is, I've been doing construction work pretty much my entire adult life, over 20 years, 21, 22 years now. Right now on this job I'm on, right now, there are about 5 of us white guys out here. There's probably 2 or 3 black guys, and the rest are Latinos. And I say the rest being 100 to 125 guys. Now I've been on this job for 6 months. And that's been about the average. I wished all these guys would get their citizenship and do things legal, but the point is that they haven't. But if you send all these guys back across the border, everybody says, oh, they're going to raise the wages and all the white guys are going to get these jobs. Bullshit. Like, I don't know what fucking sandcastle you got your head shoved in, or whose ass you got your head shoved in, but no, they're not. I've watched the Americans completely quit working.
Well, there you go. There's more to it, but I thought that was pretty fascinating. We're probably going to see a lot more of that as more and more people realize that good, hardworking people are being deported and punished and having their families torn apart. And now we're learning that their pets are being left alone because they're being taken off the streets. It's pretty awful. I saw this young guy on, I don't know if he's young, but I saw him on social media. I just saw this video, and I don't really care much about who he was saying it. I just loved what he had to say here. And then I looked him up. His name is Isaiah Frizzell, and he's like pretty big on Instagram. He's kind of like a self-help guy and an actor and commentator. I don't know. I don't really care. I just liked what he had to say, and I wanted to share it because I thought it was important, and I haven't really quite heard it put this way.
Hey, just so we're clear, it's not always hurt people who hurt people. It's also people who haven't been through much, okay? Who haven't faced consequences for their actions or their character that are hurting people so freely. I know we hear that cliche a lot, that hurt people. And there's kind of a flaw in there, because sometimes it's the people who've been through the absolute most and the absolute worst who are making sure that they show up properly in other people's lives, okay? Because they know what the other side of that feels like. And then you have people who haven't been through much. They haven't experienced any kind of struggle, challenges, pain, strife, loss, okay, responsibility, and they feel so entitled to move through the world without consequence. So they don't really have any remorse about how they're treating other people. And to double down, they find other people who will reinforce their behavior and how they move.
Man, I just thought that was so well said. I've never heard anybody say it like that, and I appreciated it. That's the good stuff I wanted to share with you. Now, moving on, here's some bad stuff. This is Megyn Kelly at the Turning Point weekend with Charlie Kirk, the leader and organizer, 2 very influential MAGA talking heads, commentators, organizers, and they are making it pretty clear that Pam Bondi is public enemy number 1 for MAGA. She's got to go, and that the MAGA thing is not going away. This clip is probably a little too long. I think it's like 2 minutes, but I'm going to share it anyway because this is their opinion, and overwhelmingly they all agree.
Megyn, you're here on a slow news day.
Nothing's going on. Has anyone been on X in the past hour?
They're happy. That's why you know they haven't
That's right.
been on social media.
We'll update you.
Why don't you update them, Megyn?
Well, this is the first big scandal, I'd say, of the Trump administration that's on Team Rational. It's not a fake media scandal like the left tries to create for President Trump every other day. It's one of the right's own making, and it's not going well. And it has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. Let me just ask you, make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Raise your hand if it matters a lot to you. Raise your hand. So every hand of 7,000 people.
Everybody cares.
A lot. I said a lot. Every hand.
Here's what I think is happening. I don't think President Trump is focused on this. He's focused on a lot of other things which are going great, and he needs to be focused on those other things. Jeffrey Epstein's not the most important thing on his agenda by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he's crushing it on the tariffs, foreign policy, just got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. If not Trump, then who? Honestly. Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize after 9 months in office. He had done nothing. He gave a nice speech about Muslims and they gave it to him. So President Trump should be getting the Nobel Peace Prize, and there's all sorts of things he's focused on. I just don't think this has captured his attention quite yet. But it needs to, because it's starting to create a real hornet's nest within the administration. And I've got to be honest, I blame Pam Bondi. I'll tell you why, okay? I have nothing, yes, incompetence, yes. I have nothing against Pam Bondi as a human being. I was fine with her nomination and her confirmation, and she's been loyal to the president, and I get that President Trump needs a loyal attorney general. Look what happened with Sessions the first time. He went away, and then the next thing you know, we had the Mueller investigation, and it was a nightmare. But there are a lot of other people who can be loyal and competent in that job. Here, she is the reason that things are unraveling around this story right now that virtually all of the Republican Party cares deeply about. It's also true that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel had questions about Epstein before they took office, okay, before they went into the FBI. But once they joined the FBI, they said nothing. They kept their mouths shut about Epstein. You have not seen them, except for one joint appearance with Dan and Kash on Fox, running all over the media looking for attention on this, yes, clickbaity story. Who have you seen? Pam Bondi. She has never missed an opportunity to go on television and dangle sweet nothings that might be coming your way. Try to lead you to believe that she's got it. It's on her desk. It's coming tomorrow. You're going to see something on Epstein. And it was a tease. So you either believe that Pam Bondi was telling the truth then or that she's telling the truth now. But both cannot be true. She was either lying when she went on Fox News all those times saying, I've got it, we're looking at it, wait until you see it, it's horrible. Or she's lying in her 2-page memo that they released on a Sunday night at the tail end of a holiday weekend to Axios, as if Axios is where we all go for our news. Hell no. She went to someone she knew would not kick the tires on the story, and without signing the memo, dropped it in the dead of night and said, that's it, take the crumbs and be happy. Refused to come out and give a presser. Come out and give a press conference. Stand there for 6 hours to the point where people are dying of boredom. They've asked all their questions. That's how you put a scandal to rest. But she wouldn't even sign her name to it. And I'm telling you, I have dollars to donuts. It's going to come out that there was internal consternation over that memo.
So much more.
And whose name did and did not go on it, and who was and was not behind it.
Going to be real fascinating to see if this is still mattering in a week or two. Over on Fox News, or I should say even on Fox News, Howie Kurtz had a couple of guests on, MAGA guests, who also said this is not going away. First, you hear from Sarah Bedford of the Washington Examiner, and then Lucy Caldwell, who's basically a MAGA political strategist. Because, they like a fair and balanced approach.
Sarah, the refusal to release anything from Jeffrey Epstein has really struck a nerve, deep nerve, among many Trump supporters, many people in the MAGA movement who say they feel betrayed. Why?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that this is a huge PR disaster for the Trump administration. There's no way for them to spin their way out of this. I think the Epstein issue had, for a lot of MAGA types, became a proxy for whether this DOJ was going to live up to their very high expectations. And obviously, Bongino, Patel, everyone involved in this sort of failed on that. I don't think they could have scripted a better way to keep the conspiracy theories alive than the way they handled it, promising that a lot of information was going to come and then sort of backtracking without any real explanation. I think this is only going to add fuel to the conspiracies around Epstein.
Lucy, is the big buildup by Pam Bondi and others a major part of the reason? I mean, you would think it'd be a 2-day story, but there's so much anger about this. Why is it such a letdown for the MAGA crowd?
Well, I spend a lot of time thinking about who MAGA base voters are. And one of the things that's really interesting, look, many people treat MAGA like it's a monolith, and it's certainly not. There are people who come to MAGA for a lot of different reasons, whether it's MAHA or it's concern over immigration. There are a lot of different issues. But they all are and report being super concerned about sex trafficking, super concerned about the issues around the Epstein specter, right? Why? Because they have been conditioned by Trump and by MAGA for years to believe whatever issue you came in caring about into this movement, this is a thing of grave concern. So they've been conditioned for years on this, and now they're being told nothing to see here. And if you question this at all, even though you have supposedly been part of the free-thinking crew that's truth-seeking and we're your truth seekers, now you're the morons. And it's especially interesting to see the betrayal of right-wing media, of folks who feel like they perhaps have given the benefit of the doubt to people like Pam Bondi, to people like Donald Trump over the years, because they think that the left-wing media, so-called, is corrupt. And now they're seeing, how is this different from what they're criticizing? I think this is a turning point, Howie.
Maybe it's a turning point. I don't know. That's my big question. That conference, by the way, was at Turning Point over the weekend. So, fun words. Okay, now let's head over to ABC News, where Jon Carroll had one of Trump's top economic advisors, Cauvin, who is also always sounds like he's got a really stuffy nose. He's very annoying to look at and to hear. But Jon Carroll gave him no quarter, no space to wriggle, did an excellent job questioning him here about the president, our mad, tiny little king, punishing all of Brazil as a result of what Brazil's judiciary has decided. It's a wild ride, and it's worth all 3 minutes of embarrassment for old stuffy-nose Hassett.
Data.
Well, as you know, a lot of economists say that the inflation will be coming, and that there were certainly a lot of imports that were brought in the anticipation that tariffs would be placed. But let me ask you about one new set of tariffs that he announced on Brazil. 50% new tariff on Brazil. Brazil had a $6.8 billion surplus last year. In fact, the U.S. hasn't had a trade deficit with Brazil since 2007. I mean, almost 2 decades. So why are we putting a punishing 50% tariff on Brazil?
Well, bottom line is the president has been very frustrated with negotiations with Brazil and also with the actions of Brazil. In the end, though, we're trying to put America first. I think that a lot of people, when I'm talking to negotiators from other countries, at some point they'll say, what did we do wrong? And what I'm trying to get, the message we're all trying to get across is this is about America getting itself ready for the golden age by getting our house in order, by getting our tariff and trade policy and tax policy exactly where it needs to be for a golden age. And normally it's not necessarily about a specific country, but with Brazil it is. Their actions have shocked the president at times, and he's made them clear about that.
But I don't understand how you're saying it's about America, because the president has made it quite clear that what he's upset about is how the Brazilian Supreme Court has handled the criminal case involving former President Bolsonaro.
I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is that what I've been saying with most countries was that it's really about us getting the tariffs in order, and I think that this tariff for Brazil is a lot higher because of the president's frustration with Bolsonaro. And the fact that Bolsonaro himself, anyway.
But can you explain to me, because I find it confusing here, on what authority does the president have to impose tariffs on a country because he doesn't like what that country's judicial system is handling a specific case?
Well,
I mean, how is that?
If he thinks it's a national defense emergency, or if he thinks it's a national security threat, that he has the authority under AIPA.
So how is it a national security threat that, how Brazil is handling a criminal case against its former president?
Well, that's not the only thing. I mean,
so what is it? I mean, I've asked what it is. I mean, it seems that that's what President Trump's talking about. He's talking about his anger and his frustration. He's been quite candid about it with the Bolsonaro case.
Right. Well, the bottom line is that what we're doing absolutely collectively across every country is we're onshoring production in the U.S. to reduce the national emergency that is that we have a massive trade deficit that's putting it at risk should we need production in the U.S. because of a national security crisis. And this is part of an overall strategy to do that.
But again, as we've just established, we have a trade surplus with Brazil, not a deficit. And we've had a surplus with Brazil for 18 years.
All right. I mean, everybody was saying how bad Cauvin looked and always sounded. Who hurt him? Was it the jocks? Was it the jocks, Kevin, that you're trying to get revenge for? All right, now these next two clips come courtesy of Tina Winsett, who never misses an episode of Velshi. Well, I'm sure she misses them sometimes, but she watches it and always reminds me that it's such a great show. My friend Ali Velshi, who I've got to get back on this show, had some great interviews and guests this weekend, including Professor of Democracy from Toronto University, a guy named Lukan Ahmad Way, who I thought was really good in this moment.
You have studied how authoritarian regimes consolidate power. Talk to me about ICE's expansion under Trump. I don't mean to be alarmist, but there are things happening that are not supposed to happen in a democracy as it relates to ICE.
Absolutely. There's a tremendous reason to be alarmed. First of all, professional career bureaucrats, they're boring. They are the bulwark of all democracies. These are the people whose loyalty is to the Constitution and not to whoever president is in power. Dictatorships, by contrast, rely on, you call it the secret police, Gestapo, the Presidential Guard in Africa, the KGB in the Soviet Union. These are forces that are loyal to the leader in power, not to any rule of law or democracy. And that is exactly, I think, why we should be so concerned about the rapid expansion of ICE. So, one of the impediments that Trump faces with agencies like the FBI and the IRS is that they're staffed by career bureaucrats who have a professional norm and their primary loyalty is not to the president, but to the Constitution. But when he rapidly expands ICE, he's going to be able to hire veterans of January 6th and other loyalists who are really sort of whose commitment is to Trump and the Republican Party and not to the Constitution and due process. And that is very, very dangerous.
Very smart, good stuff, and I highly recommend watching that full segment, that full interview on Velshi. And also, Velshi had our old friend Julia Yaffe on to talk about the devastating cuts at the State Department. That full interview was great, but here's a clip of that. Again, thanks, Tina.
And one of the important things to think about here is something else you wrote. You referred to reductions in force, RIFs. You said for months, all anyone at State could talk about were the reductions in force notices, or RIFs. Not Ukraine, not Gaza, not Iran, but who would be fired and who would be spared. One career Foreign Service officer told me people don't feel like the secretary has their back. How does that feeling affect the work of the State Department? Because all through the federal government, people are probably feeling like their secretary doesn't have their back. But in this particular case, in this fraught world that you and I both cover, what's the net effect? What's the danger here?
Well, they're not making policy. They're not sending things up the chain, any ideas, policy ideas up the chain. But to be frank, nobody wants that from them. It doesn't seem like Secretary of State Marco Rubio is setting policy, right? Why do you need a State Department when you have a deal maker in chief in the White House, right? And you have Steve Witkoff flying around on his behalf, learning about these countries he's trying to make deals with on the fly while these countries kind of take him for all he's worth. So I think people at the State Department understand that their services and their expertise aren't needed and are seen with suspicion. I think the other thing is that people at the State Department have told me is they feel like they're the enemy. Like, not only are they not needed, but then they're not trusted, that they're against Trump, that because they tend to lean more liberal than places like the Pentagon or ICE or CBP, that they are seen as kind of the resistance, as enemies to Trump that need to be rooted out, as opposed to this apolitical force that's there to serve the country and spread the American message abroad and be the representatives of our country abroad. But, you know, what does the White House need them for? To hand out visas? No. This administration doesn't want anybody coming to America. To generate foreign policy? No. This president isn't interested. Again, these are experts in the world. And think about, what does MAGA hate more than anything, right? Globalists, elitists. And that's kind of what the State Department has become to them, as opposed to a really important tool of American soft power, which is something that this administration doesn't seem to understand at all.
All right. Good stuff from Julia. Really important issue. Again, hopefully I'll talk with Bill Boyle, who knows Julia really well, from D.C. about that issue with the State Department later on today at some point. So make sure you're subscribed to youtube.com/standupwithpete. I usually give a heads up on the Discord platform as well that I'm going live with a guest, so look for that tomorrow. All right, I've also got this from CNN. I think this is Pamela Brown talking to the former head of FEMA under the Biden administration, Deanne Criswell, about what's gone on in the Department of Homeland Security since Kristi Noem took over.
Ask you about some new reporting that CNN has about FEMA's response to the disaster being slowed down by this bureaucratic obstacle that, according to multiple sources, this new rule that the Secretary, Kristi Noem, has to personally sign off on every contract and grant over $100,000 before any funds can be released. From your time at FEMA, what was your experience in responding to a crisis like this? And if a rule like that is in place, what does that mean for a response?
One of the things that makes FEMA successful is its ability to be agile. And during my time, my team would have known that I would have expected them to lean forward, begin moving resources as soon as we started to learn how bad this flooding was. FEMA can, or has in the past, been able to move resources even ahead of a presidential disaster declaration just to get them closer. But they can't put them to work until the declaration is made and the state asks for them. But we also have other resources. You know, I listened to the clip and Secretary Noem talking about the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard did an amazing job, but they have the statutory authority to respond without a declaration. They do that in every disaster. This was no different in this one.
All right, there you go. And finally, I saved the best for last. This is Mandy Patinkin and his son, Gideon and Catherine Patinkin. Have you seen this yet? Have you heard about it? Sitting down with the New York Times' David Marchese, 3 Jewish Americans talking about the continued devastation that Israel has wrought on the people of Gaza, the Palestinian people there. And it is so passionate and poignant, and I think well stated and went absolutely viral. You probably already saw it if you're online at all and in these circles. But if not, it's worth hearing and seeing, listening to, and you just have to hear the end of it, where Mandy Patinkin just gets angry. Really, really angry. And I think that he doesn't obviously speak for all Jews or all Jewish Americans. He speaks only for himself, but definitely speaks for a lot of Jewish folks who I've heard from and read and listened to as well. And I just thought this was such a really important moment, and I was glad they all sat down together. And I, of course, know Mandy, or used to know him pretty well back in the day, as some of you may or may not know. We used to pal around a bit. And here it is, though.
Is very Jewish. And the fact that I
thinking or feeling any differently about what it means for you to be Jewish in this moment?
Yes, I am. I'll let them go first.
I hate the way some people are using anti-Semitism as a claim for anybody that is critical about a certain policy. You know, as far as I am concerned, compassion for every person in Gaza, you know, is very Jewish. And the fact that I abhor the policies of the leader of that country does not mean I'm a self-hating Jew or I'm anti-Semitic.
You mean Netanyahu when you say the leader of that country?
Yeah. Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes. I feel this is the behavior, the politics of what he's doing is the worst thing for Jewish people. It's like lighting a candle for anybody that has any anti-Semitic feelings. It's creating a generation of wounded and hurt kids who will understandably be very angry. So that is how I feel, and I feel, I really feel deeply troubled and horrified by what is happening in my name.
10, 15 years ago, I was in Philadelphia, and then I go up to the hotel room. Catherine was in the hotel room, and the movie was on. She was watching The Princess Bride. And just as I walked in the room is that final scene in the movie where Inigo is sitting by the window with the man in black. And the man in black asks Inigo, would he like to be the next Dread Pirate Roberts? And the Inigo Montoya actor, who was me, said these words, which I did not really know what they meant, that William Goldman wrote, which I think are the singular greatest words I've ever read. You know, I have been in the revenge business so long. Now that it's over, I do not know what to do with the rest of my life. And I ask Jews all over the world to consider what this man, Benjamin Netanyahu, and his right-wing government is doing to the Jewish people all over the world. They are endangering not only the state of Israel, which I care deeply about and want to exist, but they are endangering the Jewish population all over the world. He is the most dangerous thing, not just since October 7th. It has been a deeply troubled situation.
And endangering the Jews by endangering those in Gaza.
And to watch what is happening for the Jewish people, to allow this to happen to children and civilians of all ages in Gaza, for whatever reason, is unconscionable and unthinkable. And I ask you Jews everywhere, all over the world, to spend some time alone and think, is this acceptable and sustainable? How could it be done to you and your ancestors, and you turn around and you do it to someone else?
Oh, man. Wow. Huh. That takes a bit to digest, huh? Very, very powerful stuff from Mandy Patinkin. All right. Well, now it's time to get to my conversation with J.L. Cauvin. But before we do, let's have a little laughs from J.L. Cauvin. And he is, of course, the very best Trump impersonator in the country, by far, in the world, I think. And I'm not exaggerating. He's the best because not only does he do a perfect impression, many people do, but it's the material. It's the material, and it's just always so great, and I love it. And, well, here he is talking about, here's JL as Trump doing a video about revoking Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship.
So in a strong legal move, I've been consulting with great legal scholars like Nosferatu, Stephen Miller, and Roy Cohn 2.0, Emile Beauvais. I'd call them, let's just pronounce it Bove or Bove, like dove, but with a B, and minus all the big women in that soap commercial. I think I'm going to ban that soap commercial, trying to make, women who aren't size 2 feel good about themselves. That's not my America. We used to hold women to standards. All of a sudden, you're a size 6 and you're getting in commercials. It's frankly disgusting, and why it shows that the left has abandoned men. But what we're trying to do very strongly is we wanted to get the Epstein files up, but who cares about that other than all of my psychotic supporters. But we want to handle something more important. It's called urgent. We call it urgent. Rosie O'Donnell, who I have called a fat pig in the past, but by the way, what's so sad for her is I actually have bigger breasts than her now. So how embarrassing is that for her? For her, she's a woman, yet I'm walking around with presidential C cups that are very strong and, sort of, I don't know, kind of impressive if you think about it. Very manly. I think that's what happens when you have too much testosterone. That's the doctor said, sir, you have too much T. Trump stands for testosterone, and you have too much T. It's starting to ooze out into forming breasts. And I thought, that's why the MAGA men love me, because they sort of envision me being strong and also possibly doing very heterosexual titty fucks of them when they sort of come over to Mar-a-Lago and just want to do manly things like watch MMA, nearly naked men on top of each other sweating, and, watching weightlifting videos and watching Joe Rogan take cold plunges. This is manly stuff, okay? And the point is, I'm so manly, I have breasts now. And so that's why, instead of focusing on the stupid Epstein files, we are going to distract and show my supporters they're like, imagine a golden retriever, but that is dumber and has rabies. And that's my supporters. So instead it's like, the Epstein tennis ball is gone. Hey, what about deport and revoke citizenship of Rosie O'Donnell? And then they just start going, oh, and they can't wait. They can't wait because they're really disgusting, and we love them. They're patriots, who want to do unconstitutional and stupid things. So we thank them, and Rosie, we're coming for you.
And He shares his great news right here at the beginning. You should go listen to his podcast. It's back and new and improved. So good. Check out JL Cauvin's Rain on Your Parade, everybody, and follow him on YouTube and all of the social media outlets. Let's do it right now. JL Cauvin joins me now. Great to see you, and congratulations. You have some great news, and I am happy to share it. Really, seriously, not a joke. No joking. It's real.
No. That was more, not a joke is a Bidenism.
Oh, right.
Hey, man, I got great news. No, I'm not kidding. Yeah, I got a job offer on Friday from this organization, NICA, which basically the job will be representing families and people in the Bronx and helping them stave off eviction. You know, we live in a world of housing crisis. And basically, I mean, your listeners, the last time I was on, I spoke very passionately about a book I had just finished called There Is No Place for Us, which is about the working homeless and the housing crisis in America in a much more nitty-gritty fashion than, let's say, Ezra Klein's Abundance, which I also read and enjoyed. But this was much more of a tangible, urgent sort of book, not from the policy perspective, but from the families and individuals suffering and living, you know, a knife's edge from poverty and homelessness. And so after I read that book, I spoke of it on your show. The author, I guess, had a friend who is a listener of yours who shared the episode. He wrote to me, thanked me for the words I said. So I had him on Rain on Your Parade. And oddly enough, about a week after I finished the book, I was saying to my girlfriend, you know, I'm a 46-year-old lawyer with like this very intermittent record of legal work on my, you know, I haven't really built up an expertise or a practice because 3 years here, then some comedy, then part-time work, then 4 years at a firm, all good money and like helping me support my comedy career and live in a comfortable way while not depending year in, year out only on comedy.
Right. So
I said to her, I said, I have a law degree from a good school, but I'm 46. I haven't developed an expertise. I'm sort of out of practice in certain respects in terms of litigation and courtroom work, obviously. And I said, how would I even get involved in in this field? Do I just go, hey, can I volunteer, or can I work as like a low paid intern to learn the ropes and get some skills and really start to learn this area so I can be of help? And this legal service that sends out job postings like multiple times a week, within a week of me finishing this book, I swear, they posted about an organization looking to hire staff attorneys to help with an organization in the Bronx that, you know, helps like low income individuals stave off eviction and represent them in housing court. And
Neighborhood Association for Intercultural Affairs is the name of the organization that you're describing. Go ahead.
And I thought, well, that's a little too on the nose. Like that. Do you know what I mean? It was like something out of a comedy.
You said before we started, it's kind of it felt kind of divine in that you had just read this book and then you see a job
and was looking
opening.
For some, like, how do I even get started? And it was like, ding dong, the bell rings, and it's like the U.S. Mail Service going like, we have a delivery for you. It's a job opportunity in the field that you're discussing right now. So I applied and figured maybe I wouldn't get it. And even in the job offer, they were like just seeking people with at least 1 year of litigation experience. So there's going to be a lot of training and a lot of like molding you to the work. But I thought usually a job like this might have said seeking somebody with at least 5 years in the landlord-tenant space and whatnot. So I applied, got like, you know, many weeks later after going like, I guess I didn't, you know, I guess I just got lost in the shuffle or they weren't interested. I get an interview. And then I found out Friday, and they said you'll hear by July 11th. But by so it gets to July 11th, and the whole week I'm going, well, I definitely didn't get it. Like it is July. Like they could have let me know Tuesday or Wednesday, like a rolling admissions kind of thing. And then I got an email after lunch on Friday saying they were offering me a job. And the irony of it is, it's not big law firm money certainly, but it's more money than I've been making with benefits, and I'm doing something that I really want to do. I hope I'm good. I hope I do a good job, but it's like, it's just, and it's in my, my home borough of the Bronx. And globalizing the Intifada has to start somewhere. Am I right, Pete? No, I'm only saying that because obviously Mamdani talked about housing, being like the signature issue, affordability and housing being such a signature component of his campaign. And I don't know if I've ever felt in my 20 years since, becoming a lawyer, ever an attachment to the work or a real utility. And that's including as a prosecutor. I don't want to say that was meaningless work, but I was a low-level prosecutor. Yeah. This is actually
this is different. It's such a
tangible and real hands-on trying to help people.
And you are going to, and you already have throughout your life. And I've just put a donate link to the organization, and you can donate as I just did. And in the comment, it says, do you want to leave a comment? And I said, for hiring one of the best, smartest, most passionate people I know. And then I wrote somebody else's name. But
yeah, no, of course, Christian Finnegan.
Dr. Aaron Carroll. No, I wrote for hiring J.L. Cauvin attached to my donation. So maybe that's a good thought so they understand how.
And then they fire me because like that looks like somebody bribed them to hire me.
I think it's great. Yeah, it's a really, really impressive bribe. It was $9, but so it was more. But
no, thank you.
I'm very excited about this. I think it's great for a lot of reasons. But again, people want to learn more. The Neighborhood Association for Intercultural Affairs. That's where JL is now going to be working to help keep families in their homes in New York City. Our primary focus is geared towards single adults, families, and seniors who are indigent and or homeless or at risk of losing their homes. NICA, am I saying it right? The acronym is a not-for-profit, multi-service, family-oriented housing and human service agency that provides culturally sensitive services to children, youth, seniors, and families. That is so wonderful, and I hope people will donate, and I hope people will. I look forward to learning more about the work and in some way becoming more involved, as I hope, a lot of.
And if there's a spike in homelessness after I get hired in the Bronx, let's just blame like funding cuts and not my poor legal work.
Well, that's one of those things, by the way, which is trying to prove a negative. So often when people talk about,
and these are, just to be clear, as much as I joke around, these are the final jokes I will probably ever have about this work. A, because I'll be working there. And I've always maintained, people have always said, oh, do you joke about your job? And I say, no. I talk about being a DA 10 years after leaving the office, but there's no, so I'm making a little bit of a joke, but it's serious work and it's not something I will discuss once I'm doing it, obviously.
I'm sure you're very principled, seriously, and moral-minded guy. But at the same time, I'm sure you'll still make jokes about the myths about poverty and homelessness that people will make because you'll have more evidence of those, tripes that we've heard for years, and you'll be able to joke on it. But I think it's really one point I wanted to make talking about this organization is people always look at anti-poverty nonprofits or more likely policies, laws, and they say, see, they don't work. They're failing because people are still in poverty, or poverty has gone up ever since we passed these poverty policies. You hear Paul Ryan and Republicans saying this forever. Certainly they talk about it in terms of the new bill. But it's just such a tired and ridiculous thing to say because, of course, the truth is if those policies and organizations weren't doing the work they're doing, it would be far worse, but you never get to make that argument, and people don't.
And as Brian Goldstone said in his book, and I got to tell you, if J.L. Cauvin praising the book, applying for jobs, and altering his life as a result of reading that book is not enough to get you to borrow or buy the book, I don't know what it would take. But I think one of the things Brian said in our interview is keeping people from becoming homeless is like the easy, in a sense, it's not easy work, but it's the easiest way to sort of lower costs is like finding ways to keep people in their homes is still a cheaper alternative than providing for the homeless. So stopping evictions is like an important cog in the housing crisis. And like you said, much like I think that has happened with Democrats in general in politics, is you don't get credit for the wins that just keep things as they are. You know, it's like putting someone in a home is like, that's a win.
Right.
Keeping 100 people in their homes is also a humongous win.
I would argue government rarely gets credit for any of the wins, even the outright wins that are just binary. You can see this thing is no longer there. You know, like eradicating measles. That's an outright win.
Well, that obviously was a lie because we have measles again. So obviously we were sold a bill of goods. We always had measles. We had measles, and I'm proud to say that they're back.
Rogan just said that Lyme disease was created in a lab by humans and somehow leaked, when in fact, apparently Lyme disease is 60,000 years old.
Right, but that doesn't refute the fact that it was leaked from a lab.
What do you think about lab? What do you think about this? I'm being a little serious. There's a disease caused by a tick bite called alpha-gal, and when you get alpha-gal, you have a meat allergy, like instantly if you get it. And you can't eat meat. You just can't do it anymore. What if you convinced MAGA and anti-vaxxers to get that vaccine because, God forbid, they can't eat meat anymore? How about that? How do we wrap that one up in a butcher?
Yeah, I think you can. I still, they just wouldn't believe it. I think they wouldn't believe it. And then they'd say, I'm going to eat meat anyway.
All right, well, I want to talk about a bunch of other things, and I also want to interview Brian Goldstone as soon as possible. So pass along his information if you don't mind, and I'll read the book,
sure, and
I'll interview him. And I'm just so excited about this news. I think it's great for a lot of reasons, and I'm also excited that you'll be talking more in depth about it and joking about your path to it on your show, Rain On.
This week's episode is going to be focused a lot on the Epstein files. But yeah, the show's going great. Producer Mike is back. I already just enjoyed having his presence back, even though I think the few episodes I did without him were very strong. But I forgot.
I just watched that episode and / listened to it, and I was really happy that he's back. I think he brings a lot to it, and I'm psyched. And you were going to say you're going to talk about Epstein, but I want you to talk about it now here. I'm pretty obsessed with it. Let me just make this point about the whole Epstein controversy and where it's at right now with the MAGA civil war, as it's often called, when we see a split and then we maybe overreact. But I just
Confederate on Confederate crime.
I was just watching a clip from your friends over at Pod Saves America, and they were saying the Epstein thing right now, this is Trump's Katrina. Bush's Katrina.
It tells you a lot about. Okay, so I'm gonna tip a little bit of what I'm going to discuss.
This is the biggest threat, they said, to his power, administration, support.
Yeah, doesn't that say everything you need to know about MAGA though? Like I have a joke on an old album about Pizzagate where I go, credit to the one guy who showed up to Comet Pizza with a gun. Yeah. Because he believed it. And what would you do if you genuinely believed there was a child sex ring in your neighborhood under a pizza shop? You'd go and do something. Like, I'm admitting the crazy.
Well, that's what I said, too, about January 6th. Yes. If you thought the election was stolen, I would have gone. I was about to go to do something when they were going to steal everybody in Detroit's vote and overturn it in 2020. Right.
Now, there is an element of who's susceptible, just like hypnosis, who's susceptible to these ridiculous accusations. Somebody probably with some deficiencies in their moral core. But no one else went to Comet Pizza. And I made a joke about that. And I said, so you guys are just psychos and also not actually willing to do anything to save the children that you think are being abused? That seems to be the worst of both worlds. You're delusional yet moral weaklings. And I feel like that's sort of the Epstein thing is, to me, and we talked about helping children and children's safety and gun violence versus trans sports. What's the bigger threat to children?
Yeah.
And I think the Epstein thing is just so part and parcel of the Trumpian and also the MAGA view of like quick fix heroes. I want to be a hero in the easiest possible way. The rich people are all part of a cabal, and we've got to somebody expose it. But I'm shouting it from my social media accounts. I'm a hero. I'm part of the solution. I'm not doing anything, but you do something, and I am a hero for exposing this conspiracy. And the fact is, feeding children is difficult work. Educating children is difficult work. Housing, making sure kids aren't in poverty, that's painstaking long-term work. But claiming that one rich guy was abusing kids on an island and like some famous people were with him, that's easy. Like that. You can pin all your heroism onto that kind of quick fix, just like Trump's big, beautiful bill. He wanted a big, beautiful bill because he wants to do as little work as possible. He doesn't want to meet and legislate and negotiate and he wants everything. There's a sort of ADD quick fix hero kind of mindset. They want to do something big and quick.
Well, that's because there's a reason for that. I think that's a really interesting diagnosis about the kind of MAGA mentality. And I would argue that if he wanted to make everything easier, he wouldn't have destroyed every trade deal and tried to renegotiate trade deals that take years to negotiate, in 90 of them in 90 days. But he didn't realize that, because that too falls into what I'm about to say about the binary that is created, perfect segue, by right-wing media. It's this or that. And then people have no nuance. We've all talked about this in their arguments and their thought processes about difficult problems and things. But it's best illustrated right now because Don Bongino and Kash Patel on their podcasts and YouTube shows and everywhere they went were screaming about the Epstein list, which likely never existed because it was made up. That idea was made up that there was a list, and it just became a truth because people repeated it over and over. They demanded it. Then they went to work in government. And it all falls apart because when you're on the radio, when you're on YouTube, you just create boogeymen and you create binaries, black hats, white hats, bad and good, especially with something as complicated as immigration. All these people are criminals. No, they're not. The vast majority of them are working. Anyway, the point being, that's how they think because that's the commentary, their favorite host, that's how they position it. Every day, as long as I've been studying and working in media, specifically in right-wing media, make it this or that. I see a lot of progressives doing it now as well, but there's still a lot of nuance with all the big issues that we're facing. But that's not how they like it. They want it spoon-fed. They want to know who to like. And just now, I just found out my local town councilman apparently drove around, or had somebody drive around on July 4th.
I saw that post.
And keep track of who had American flags flying. And it's another way to create an in-group and an out-group, and more importantly, you don't want people in government doing that based on a flag you have flying. So
you almost became Seinfeld there for a second.
Yeah, what's a flag flying? I got all these flags. What's with flags? They fly, sometimes they don't.
Hey, solid. I think it's
back to Epstein. What does it mean?
Yeah.
What will it matter?
I think Bongino is funny to me because I think, like all these people, yes, it's an honor to serve in a job that you don't deserve and is well out of your depth. Deputy fucking director of the FBI, please. But now I think he sees an off-ramp to more money, which is it's either me or Pam Bondi.
Well, his reputation, he can't make more money if he goes along with the government line. He knows what he's up against. Because of the binary he created, because of the myth he created, his reputation would be destroyed.
But he has an off-ramp now that might lead to more money where he can be like, I left because of Pam Bondi. Everybody subscribe to my Patreon.
Absolutely.
I'm the guy who left the Trump administration because I believe so strong. I'm more MAGA than Trump. I am the most MAGA, and come join me and we'll discuss the files they wouldn't let you see.
Does it work? What about Trump saying, why are we still talking about this? What about the rage from MAGA? Is it the worst thing that has happened for him? Is it his Katrina, as they say on PodSafe? Does it matter next week?
Even if it is his Katrina, did that do anything for George Bush? He was a lame duck. So Donald Trump governs like he doesn't have another election to run for. That's the thing people don't seem to understand. He is in this for revenge and grifting. There is no third agenda where I have to make my people happy. As much as he might want to, of course, I want to keep my voters happy. He doesn't need to. And at the end of the day, look, he will abandon anybody, including his supporters, if self-preservation is at stake. He is in this for money and for revenge. There's no third agenda. There's no Trump agenda of policy or delivering for my supporters. He's not delivering for his supporters. Like, he's actively doing things that will hurt his supporters through legislation. They can only really process the conspiracy theory because that's fast food. That's immediate content right now that they understand and want answers to. They don't care right now that their insurance is going to go away or that their energy bills will go up. But like, he is not governing like he gives a shit about them because he doesn't give a shit about them. So to make this his Katrina, I think George W. Bush, for all his flaws, I'm sure he didn't like Kanye West saying he doesn't pay.
Forget it. Forget Bush. Forget Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
What does this mean for him based on what you're saying? Because it seems like no matter how bad even a core thing gets overturned, you know, he was the no war guy. He bombs Iran. They loved it. People thought.
No, he lost Dave Smith.
He lost Dave Smith. He just also lost, at least temporarily, Andrew Schultz, the comedian.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow as well. But you know, when Trump shocks the black scent off of white podcasters, you know he's really shocked the shit out of them. You know, when you start pronouncing your R's at the end of words again as a hip hop adjacent white guy,
Andrew Schultz does that.
No, watch his endorsement of Trump is very like, yeah, no, I'm about the dude who's getting pussy. All right, bruh? Like, come on, for real. And then all of a sudden Trump does that, and it's like, are we the stupid ones? It's very much Justin Timberlake before and after Nipplegate. Hey, come here, girl. Come on, girl. Let me get some of that. I am shocked and appalled at what happened with Janet Jackson. Thank you. When the black scent gets slapped off of you, you know you've been.
I didn't remember the before and after with Timberlake, but I'm glad that you performed it for us. So, furthermore, moreover, what?
Nothing. I am that cynical.
Okay.
Yes, it will upset some. The people who might suffer are J.D. Vance or other Republicans down the line. Donald Trump, it doesn't matter.
Because the only thing that matters is owning the libs and dividing, like hating them. And as long as we hate him, no matter what, they're not going to stop hating him, it would seem.
I don't even think it matters.
Yeah.
To him, he is making billions of dollars. He is extorting, and I wrote this, these are not tariffs, these are extortions of foreign governments. He's extorting foreign governments. He's doing crypto grifting at a 9-figure level. Of course he would love his supporters to like him. But the idea that he's saying, why was Epstein was a real nasty person. Why are we even talking about him? He's obviously nervous about this, and he's not going to release anything, and he's going to bear the consequences of that, and it's not going to impact his money. It's not going, and at the end of the day, if he has to choose, if it comes down to me, my money, or me and my supporters, it's him and his money. So worst case scenario, you know what? They really soured on Trump at the end, you know, and then they'll get mad at Democrats when all the things come to pass. Yeah. That he did substantively.
I think you're probably right that the short answer, it doesn't matter, but I will, for sake of argument, because it's the one thing I pretty firmly believe.
It might draw down voter turnout in the midterms, but I think Democrats are going to have good midterms anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right about that if we have midterms, if they're not suspended. But the idea that the most influential right-wing talkers are not going to leave it alone because it's a really easy thing and it gets ratings, to me matters. It matters what happens in the news cycle. And sometimes we're all focused on the same thing, Iran, Israel. Sometimes it's MAGA and then the rest of us on Earth One. But most of us in the rest of the world are focused on these more serious consequential issues like the bill, the disaster in Texas, tariffs, many other things that affect our lives directly. But in MAGA world, if those Megyn Kellys, Steve Bannons, Charlie Kirks, Benny Johnsons, the biggest MAGA influencers continue to talk about this because, again, it gets great ratings. It's such an easy talker. It stays in their news cycle and that siloed news cycle for sure.
That's what's great about them, though, is that they operate the same way as Trump. Neither of them are actually fans of the other. There is a symbiotic relationship that, in other words, but at the end of the day, money, cash rules everything around MAGA, cream, dollar bill, y'all. The podcasters will pick Trump over everything except their Patreon subscribers and their donations. Donald Trump will choose his fans over everything, that adoration, that love, that support, except over his own safety and money. So like they're approaching this like standoff, it seems, where it's like, well, Trump is my second favorite thing after money. And Trump is like, I love MAGA more than anything except money. So if we get to that point, which we may be approaching, where it's like, do I support Trump or do I keep pushing the conspiracy theory that pays my bills and my mortgage? I'm going to keep going with the conspiracy theory. If it comes down to that final level.
That's the insidious bet they made, all of them, when they got in line with him in 2016. Because some of them never did. They're the never Trumpers. But many of them sold out on everything they ever believed. The one that stands out in my mind most is Mark Levin. But, I mean, all of them who did. And so this is a similar bet that they're going to make within the fact that he's the president. Do I double down on Epstein and keep doing, as you just said, I like the kind of delta of money versus
And that's why they're bashing Pam Bondi. Like Pam Bondi is the stand-in. She's a woman, so that's convenient.
And I did see some analysis which seemed pretty interesting that who knows if the president takes this into consideration. But at this point, Pam Bondi has committed a whole lot of crimes for him and done a whole lot of unethical things and much more as his attorney general. Like letting her go, given all she knows, putting her on the wrong side of him. Maybe he doesn't want to do that. I don't know.
But wonderful job by America as always. And it's just, to me, it's funny when somebody like Andrew Schultz says, this isn't what I voted for. Okay, well, you didn't pay attention then, because I could have said, I voted for Donald Trump to be an honorable person who cares about the poor. And somebody would say, well, you're dumb because clearly he doesn't believe in any of those things. And to say, I didn't vote for this, well, you voted for Trump. So you voted for exactly what he's doing because that's what he said he was going to do. And I don't know. Like, I just think when things like what's so great about Trump in a way, Trump and MAGA and his administration is the chickens come home to roost so quickly. It's like, fuck FEMA. 3 weeks later, we fucked up. We got a lot of dead people, a lot of damage. FEMA, actually, FEMA's not so bad. It's like comical. And yet it's not. That should be, I know, and it's been covered. That has been covered by the Times and things like that. But to me, that should be a question that is haunting them. And what Trump is doing kind of brilliantly for stupid people, which is his constituency, the greedy and the stupid, he's doing like a support the troops kind of jujitsu, where it's like if you criticize the war, like in Iraq, the troops, you're against the troops. He's doing the thing. I think our rescue people have done a great job. Yeah, nobody's criticizing the person saving 100 people from drowning.
He did the same thing in the bombing of Iran. He's like, you're criticizing the pilots. And the journalists, like Peter Alexander, whoever's like, what? No, and it was the one time where I saw the journalists, because he kept using that line saying, you don't support the troops. Very rarely do they get defensive, but I feel like a couple of like old school White House reporters were like, Kelly O'Donnell, I think, was one of them. They're like, okay, listen, that's not true. I do support. That's not what I'm saying at all. How dare you, like project that nonsensical
but
argument.
that's his new move.
Yeah,
just
for
to
sure.
be like, hey, why did you say you wanted to eliminate FEMA? How dare you disrespect our people at FEMA?
Did you see like that Coast Guard guy with the mustache that apparently like saved, or whatever it was, National Guard saved like hundreds of people?
Yeah.
I so wanted that guy to, after all the support he was getting from MAGA, as he should from everybody. I so wanted him to be like, oh, by the way, I'm trans.
That would be
after all the praise from.
I actually edited a video I put out. I decided not to go there, and it's gone kind of a little viral. It's got like 200,000 views on Facebook, 100,000 views on Instagram. Like Trump going to Texas for the flood.
Oh,
and
I haven't seen that.
The one thing I chose not to. I took this part out, but I said at one point, and although you have a lot of the campers, the girls, they died, and that's sad, but at least there were no trans girls with them when they died. Because we kicked it, because it's a girls' camp. So we said no sports with the girls. So you're welcome for that. So it's nice. Your daughters are dead, but they died doing what they love, which is not playing sports against trans girls. And I took that out because even though that's very dark humor and kind of on point, I said we don't need to bring the girls into it, period.
It's risky, but I hadn't seen that video. I saw your Trump impression videos of him attacking Rosie O'Donnell, which was hilarious.
Yeah, and that's another, it's like, once again, if you're so ridiculous in your disregard for the Constitution, who cares? He does the whole thing.
How is he disregarding the Constitution by attacking Rosie O'Donnell?
No, I'll take away her I'll revoke her citizenship. Like,
I almost wanted to pose that to MAGA. Like, what do you think of this? Do you think that the president should just be able to revoke citizenship based on criticism? And they would all be totally fine with it, just like you can put someone in jail because they wrote a pro-Palestinian piece. I mean,
like January 6th people, that would be like, wouldn't that make sense if their citizenship was revoked when the next president comes in? It's like, well, you attacked our election. You basically.
Well, there's a difference. It's all. None of it is legal to revoke someone's constitution based on a crime they commit. You can murder everyone and still keep your citizenship, and you can also write whatever you want and keep your citizenship.
Of course. I'm saying under the I don't like Rosie O'Donnell standard, so I can revoke her citizenship. That's such a low bar that I'm like, well, then certainly attacking the Capitol would clear that bar.
That was just something that happened over the weekend. If people don't know, he attacked Rosie O'Donnell. You also had a funny video of his attacking the new Superman movie, which was really good.
Sure.
Too.
I will say this. I don't think you've talked to Professor Siegel about this guy, but that guy Emile Bove, who kind of looks like Roy Cohn 2.0.
Yeah,
he's playing the part also.
Yeah, he looks like he just crawled out of the sea. Is how I see him. Like he's still not done. Evolving.
I hope he doesn't get – I really – like him getting confirmed as an appeal, like one step from the Supreme Court would be really bad.
Whistleblower has made it less likely he'll get confirmed, but
you never – I mean, if Trump calls in, primary threats or whatever, to get, because he'll take it as personal.
It's the U.S. Senate.
It's his attorney.
It would be the Senate confirming him. And so that would be less controversial than voting for the bill they just passed. So I do want to ask you about that because you've had plenty of time to talk and think about it as you did on your last episode, which I thought was great. But this, to me, this is the thing, the news item, the event that has transpired in the last couple of weeks that deserves the most attention because we don't talk about these things. The news cycle moves, relevancy matters, obviously in media, but in our lives.
Also, my trademark, justice matters.
Also, justice matters. And so we don't talk about these policies and how they affect our lives. And it hasn't also affected our life yet. It will. As a matter of fact, they wrote it specifically so it wouldn't remove Medicaid for a lot of people until after the midterm elections, of course. And we understand how that works. But what are your thoughts, and how do we continue to talk about this and keep in the headlines what they have just done to destroy America so much more than they did before based on this legislation alone?
As I've made the case, and obviously with my new job, I'm not discussing any other things I might do, because obviously I want to commit to this job. But I will say this, the idea that I've been saying, which is somebody who can reach lots of people, educate lots of people, and engage lots of people is a must for the Democrats. And I'm talking beyond a Jasmine Crockett or an AOC. I'm talking somebody like a Pete Buttigieg, unless some, half white knight arrives in Congress in the next couple of years to take on this role. A Pete Buttigieg as like an educator in chief via the DNC on social media, like creating here's what the bill does. Here's why they're not doing this. I'm talking every independent, left of center, anti-MAGA person, subscribe, share the videos. Like there needs to be that kind of a commitment, I think, at this point, because we are an underengaged, undereducated, underengaged, really, populace right now in terms of having Democrats have to do the job of, and it's a thankless task in many ways, of doing the right thing, informing and educating the people, and also exciting them. Whereas MAGA needs to just really excite, and usually in a negative way.
Yeah, you're absolutely. It's a perfectly and somewhat succinct way of saying the difference between what MAGA versus not progressives, not like the rest of us, how we think about news and politics. We communicate.
And I
we
feel
have
like
different
a Pete
brains.
Buttigieg would be a good person that maybe he would view it beneath him. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he would jump at the opportunity to become like the official spokesman of policy against MAGA. But this bill is a nightmare. I read through like the New York Times. They had a 2-page printout of basically all the things it does. And all the cuts are horrible, but then I found it so darkly humorous that all the military spending, and the only line item with zero was Inspector General.
Oh, wow.
Like zero, like billions, hundreds of billions, tens of billions. Inspector General,
nothing.
The
New York Times breakdown and many others had a basically a way of showing what they're spending more on and what they're cutting. And in this case, they're not spending more on inspectors general, apparently, because they don't.
Right. It was just funny to see like everything in the military gets more, except people who will check on corruption or wasteful things.
When a politician advocates openly to remove all anti-corruption resources, personnel, departments, including those that are going after foreign countries, that's. When people, that's a real when people show you who they are. Like
it's called a tell in the gaming world.
So is there anything specifically about the bill? All love what you're saying and really important about the kind of communication about it and so on. But I mean, one specific thing I'll just say, unless you've got something about healthcare, any number of the other things, it resources ICE and Homeland Security so much more. And so the question I ask you is, how much does this bill matter? You talked about communicating about it, keeping it in the news. But the other thing that's obviously happening is so many other things. The top line one, usually is the case, is anything that has imagery. So you've got the flooding or a natural disaster, but usually what has more eyes on that is any kind of violence, any kind of street crime on video. So the top line news item continues to be, it would seem, across all media platforms and political ideologies, is these deportations and the videos that go along with it. So now that this bill is sourcing so much more ICE, my question to you is, seeing what you saw just last week or today on videos of this and kids and handcuffs, I mean, it just gets worse by the day. It's just so horrifically insidious and grotesque. And now they're going to have more money to do it all. What do you make of that? That's kind of, these deportations kind of keeps the bill and MAGA in our sights. And it would seem that most Americans don't like it.
Yeah, no, and I hate to say it. I said Tom Homan. Now I know I'm missing, it's a sports and history joke that I'm making, but I called Tom Homan Bull Connor in the streets and Lou Holtz in the dentist seat. Thank you.
Wow. You got to know how former Notre Dame Lou Holtz talks, but he's got a real speech issue, and you're never afraid to criticize the way someone looks or sounds.
Yeah, I mean, we it's somebody. I've often said that if I ever got into politics, I view myself as a left-wing Quint from Jaws. I'm not there to, he's the guy who scratches the chalkboard and just sits there and tells them in very gruff terms that he'll get the shark for them. But he's not like a town fisherman, like, hey, guys, let's get. And I feel like there needs to be a little bit of that in the Democratic Party. Somebody who's just willing to, once in a while, kicking the bad guy in the nuts is not a de facto bad thing.
That's your dumbest analogy. And I just watched some of Jaws, and I just don't even know. It's so deep. It's the Quint thing, but I do get your point.
It's a great movie, 50th anniversary, by the way.
It's a great point.
But I like Tom Homan, yes. And I don't want this for people, but if he's going to do it, let him be the Bull Connor to this movement. I mean, Donald Trump is really the Bull Connor, but like Tom Homan, you're a gruff, unattractive, inarticulate ghoul. Be the face of heartless America. Not the heartland. This is heartless America. What happened to the heartland? Start using terminology like that. They don't represent the heart of America. They represent, the heart disease of America. And it is a good thing, and I'm putting that in air quotes for somebody just listening, if it keeps this, I'd rather see people not getting abused and detained and treated violently.
Yeah, but
if there's no third solution, if it's, they televise this, let the horror be seen. And as always with Republicans, and Trump voters are part of that movement, this idea of, well, I didn't think they were going to do this, or, oh, well, I'm in love with an immigrant and I didn't think they were coming for her, or, oh, my son-in-law is a good immigrant. We thought they were going after criminals. You are so full of shit. I'm sorry. You've tricked yourself. At best case scenario, you fooled yourself. Yeah. Because this idea of Donald Trump being some soldier of integrity who's like, we're going to get the bad guys. We're going after the bad guys. He's a racist who wants to get all immigrants out. How much did you have to ignore to like placate yourself and make yourself believe that like your guy was only going to go after people you didn't like?
The development this week that got a lot of attention was when Tom Homan basically said, we can go after anybody we want based on their appearance and behavior in the context now. So that
then he slapped his "Play Like a Gestapo Today" sign. That's more Notre Dame Nazi sort of. These are real good jokes if people are getting them.
It's they are. No, it's so good. And a really, really good joke. I will say that. But that's basically broken windows policing, stop and frisk on a federal level. And we did that in New York and other cities, and it didn't work.
And I would even say it's more stop and frisk than broken windows, because to be fair about broken windows, just on the theoretical level, no, it was about low level crime, but it wasn't about you look like a criminal, at least in theory. Stop and frisk is much more of the you look like somebody who's a criminal. And that was, New York proved it when they had, hundreds of thousands of stops that were like nothing. And then when they eliminated stop and frisk, there wasn't this big increase in crime at all.
Yeah.
Proving that it was like, and people boogeymaned, de Blasio on wanting to get rid of it.
So it's one of these things, by the way, which is we always lose as human beings with a kind of moral compass. Like we never win, we lose both ways. But it's just like torture. It's like I would support stop and frisk if I thought it worked, even if it was racist. I wouldn't, but a lot of people would, even if it worked. I would support torture if it worked, even though it's terrible. But the truth is, they generally don't work. And we try these policies wondering, will they work to stop crime or to get confessions out of terrorists about, we try them, they fail, and then we have that as a record, not unlike all the Republican economic policies.
Pete, let's pass bills that will increase poverty, because poverty never leads to an increase in crime. They will blame Mamdani or woke prosecutors and not the root causes, because the root causes take years to develop. And then it will be whatever Democrats in office, well, he did this and look at crime. And it's like, but the root causes of these, like poverty is
is much more an indicator of
and
crime.
You can tie two of your favorite books together, Goldstones and Blitzen.
Oh, Jonathan Blitzer.
By saying,
what a book that was.
I would say this. Desperation often breeds criminal behavior. Not always, but often it's the result. And one desperation would be having to leave your country for any number of reasons, maybe because you're being hunted by a gang, and you criminally enter or legally enter and then criminally overstay your visa as a result of desperation. But we criminalize that kind of poverty. And
look at Haitians, as an example of, yes, we are removing your TPS status because it's perfectly safe to go back to Haiti. And then the State Department simultaneously is labeling Haiti the top level of dangerous, do not go there for Americans.
TPS, by the way, stands for Temporary Protected Status, which you have to get.
In Office Space, they were filling out TPS reports. Nobody ever talks about how that was a big pro-immigrant safety movie.
I did not know that.
Oh, you never saw that movie, did you?
I saw it, but I don't remember things.
Because I would always say, hello, Peter, what's happening? And you'd be like, what is that? And I was like, that's what Lumbergh says in Office Space.
I'm not a fucking freak like you are, that I remember everything I ever saw, watched, listened to, heard. You're kind of brilliance or sickness. It could be an illness because you remember all the bad things, too.
Yeah.
You can't get past the traumas and everything of a bad experience or song or movie.
Yeah, that's true. But hopefully I'll get past this because America's in a great place right now. I think we can agree on that at least.
Oh yeah, for sure. Before I let you go, making fun of someone's appearance is always fun. I'm happy to do, especially when they're a bad person. I do want to just get way in, and maybe if you have, I haven't seen it. The Attorney General of Texas is a guy named Ken Paxton, and he's running for Senate. And he's
I think I weighed in on this. You did like my post.
Oh, okay.
on Blue Sky or whatever.
Now I do remember it. Yes, it's a very funny joke. But
I said he looks like Sloth from Goonies trying to look like Bill Belichick.
Yes. It's just these jokes are funny because sometimes the references are a little bit outside. Lou Holtz and Bill Belichick, today, the football coaches. Not everybody knows who they are, but if you do, man, is it a great call.
Right.
A great joke. So what do you think about the news that this week he's running for Senate? He's a criminal. He's the corruptest of corrupt AGs.
He's awful. He's the worst person in Texas. Like Greg Abbott for all the things Ken Paxton is like irredeemably bad.
Yeah,
he's just bad.
Super Christian nationalist, but more than anything else, just really corrupt. Like even if you're a Christian nationalist, you should hate him because he has no beliefs at all except for Ken Paxton. So now his wife has apparently realized that because he's committed some kind of a sin, a biblical compromise on their marriage, I guess. And
he ate shellfish. That's what my sources are telling me.
He ate shellfish. I was hoping it was 1,000 cocks.
No, I hope. What makes me
or one.
Yeah, what makes me sad? A friend of mine wrote to me and said, "Grinder?" ? But what makes me sad about these things? It's the same way whenever somebody says, "You know what? I hope your son is gay." Like I hope your daughter dates a black guy.
An anti-gay or an anti-black racist.
Yeah. And then I'm like, but in this world, can we not subject the gay child or the black boyfriend to the racist morality play? Maybe they can somehow in this world that in your scenario, it's like, yeah, aren't you unhappy? But you know who else is unhappy in that scenario? The gay son or the black boyfriend.
I wouldn't. Yeah, but that's different than what we're wishing on.
Oh, no,
here.
I know, but I'm in a jokey way. I'm saying in this fantasy world where it's like, aren't you upset? Yeah, but they're probably going to make life terrible for that person that's upset.
Fair enough.
Also.
Well, it's also, by the way, I didn't openly wish for Ken Paxton's transgressions to be against a child versus another adult, right? Because it is also true that a lot of these people who position themselves as very virtuous around children and child abuse and just generally religious people. Right-wing religious people are constantly fucking children. And it's like an everyday thing where a man, quote, a man of the cloth, a Christian leader, is come to find out to be a child molester. And if only we could say, take the MAGA energy that is going after Epstein, after the thousands of run-of-the-mill, quote, pastors and men of the cloth throughout this country, wouldn't that be a nice place to live?
I am, as the resident Catholic in the community, I am of the opinion that it's sort of like purge the church. And if we have to go back to worshiping in like a rental office, so be it. If we can't have ornate things because we have to pay off so many abuse victims and close places, like it is one of those things where you just sort of think like tear it down. If like, I mean, I know you know what I mean, but in terms of even as somebody who is a Catholic, it's sort of like, don't you want this shit purified?
Yeah.
Jesus would walk into a meeting where you're shuffling priests and he would turn over the table and condemn half of you to the, fiery flames of perdition. Like it wouldn't be, he could forget, there's forgiveness, but there's also this is wrong. This is, you cannot speak in my Father's name. You cannot pastor to people as this. And it seems to be, not to sound too much, I know there'll be at least some person on Twitter who follows you just to hate on you. And then when you post a clip of us, I'll see something like beta pieces of shit. But it does seem whenever you have organizations, as we do in so many places, that are just all male leadership, bad things happen. And that's not, I'm not breaking, this isn't breaking news.
No, I mean,
I'm just saying it seems to always be. It's like military, synagogue, Catholic Church, Boy Scouts.
Are you saying that you think we should put down the patriarchy? That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, no. I wouldn't go that far. No.
Now, let's dial it back.
I mean, in day-to-day life, the patriarchy is great. I'm just saying in those bigger groups, it's bad. Right. Like in my home, when I speak, there is silence.
That kind of patriarchy.
That's good. That's good patriarchy.
Right. Is it matter that there's no one there?
We call that patrial right.
Does it matter that generally when you're home, there's no one else there?
Well, my female dog Cookie is here right now, sitting peacefully.
I'm glad that she respects the patriarchy.
Absolute respect. In fact, she comes from an old school kind of mindset where the male is the alpha.
Oh, look at this. The Marshall Project. Don't end broken windows policing. Fix it. Maybe you were right.
Well, I'm just saying that there was even if in theory, a sort of a theory that could theoretically work, but stop and frisk was really like you look suspicious, fella. And it just so happens that it's usually a black teenager or a brown teenager.
I appreciate you joining me and talking about all these things. I loved your latest episode of Rain on Your Parade.
Everybody subscribe where you listen to podcasts and or subscribe to my YouTube channel.
And I was going to save this for after because it might be too out of context or whatever, but I just laughed really hard when you did your Cuomo off the cuff and you said whatever he said, but then at the very end,
of course,
you just said ventilator because that's the word to get into the impression, but there was no place to place it. So the fact that you just put at the end, I was alone listening and I just guffawed.
Well, like there was a comedian who used to just say hamburger after every punchline.
Oh, really?
And I would call, if he were a comic, I'd call him Ventilator Cuomo. And it would just be, every joke would be like, you ever see a woman so fine, you break a hip? Ventilator.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Thank
you, everybody, for stopping by and watching live. There's a record number since I started going live a couple weeks ago because I mean, mainly because of Twitter, because you shared it on Twitter. I'm sharing it on Twitter. So I guess maybe why are we still here on Twitter, given the fact that it's AI is Hitler?
Yeah, but maybe 1920s Hitler.
Oh. I feel
before he got out of control.
I feel so much better now. Oh, that relieves me. I needed just the thinnest of reasons to stay. Thank you, my friend. I'm going to hit end.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right, there you go. JL Cauvin. Go give him a follow on YouTube, on every social media. Support him on Patreon and listen to his podcast, Rain on Your Parade, with his back and new and improved. And also go support that nonprofit that he is working for. And that is it. That's all I've got for you. I hope to see you at tonight's Hangout. And I am going to say goodbye. Goodbye. I hope you have a good day. And I am looking forward to talking to you tonight. Thank you to Jon Carroll for writing the music for this show. Go download his new album, joncarroll.org. Right